So we just had the anti-Roosh V Return of Kings meet up here in Wellington. Quite a lot of people showed up. There were some good speeches, and I just want to send a big fuck you to Return of Kings and a big fuck you to Roosh V, and I hope you guys enjoy not coming to Wellington because your event's been cancelled. Haha. Shame on you, rape apologists. Learn how to be good people. Thank you.
She lives on Love Street, lingers long on Love Street. She has a house and garden. I would like to see what happens. She has robes and she has monkeys, lazy diamond-studded flunkies. She has wisdom and knows what to do. She has me and she has you. To do. She has me and she has you. I see you live on Love Street. There's the store where the creatures meet. I wonder what they do in there. Summer, Sunday, and a year. I guess I like it fine so far. She lives on Love Street, lingers long on Love Street. She has a house and garden. I would like to see what happens. La 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 la.
Tēnā koutou, I want to welcome you all here to the Stand Up for Women meetup, which was organised publicly on Facebook and didn't require a secret little passcode to get into. So thank you for all coming out on this surprisingly good Wellington evening and taking a bit of time out of your long weekend, if you get one, to take a stand on violence and abuse. And I also want to acknowledge before we get underway that it is Waitangi Day, a day when we should remember and acknowledge one of the founding documents of our society and the ongoing struggle to have Te Tiriti o Waitangi properly honoured in this country. My name's Stephanie Rogers. I'm one of the organisers of this event. I blog at a little corner of the internet called Boots Theory. I'm also on the governance group of Wellington Rape Crisis, and I'm here pretty much in both roles. Rape Crisis is a support centre for survivors of rape and sexual abuse and their families, friends and whānau. Like many agencies in Wellington and across New Zealand, they do tremendous work helping the survivors of sexual abuse, often on shoestring budgets and with no really good guaranteed government funding, which is a bit rubbish. The thing is, agencies like Rape Crisis are great, but they aren't the answer to sexual violence in our society, because the answer lies in all of us. When we all stand together at an event like this, it's a massive first step drawing a line about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in our society publicly together. Because they're not just a bunch of strangers on the internet, they are people, our friends, our co-workers, our family members. Now, when we started talking about this event and having people speak here and in the media, we felt it was really important to have men's voices out there, not to dominate the conversation, not to talk over women, but to take a stand as men against sexual violence and sexist attitudes. Because the reality of living in a patriarchy is that a guy saying something gets taken a hell of a lot more seriously than a woman saying exactly the same thing. Changing people's behavior is a huge process, and men have a really significant role to play supporting each other to get help, to hold each other accountable, and to offer support to the people affected by abuse. That's as important, if not more important, than being an awesome righteous dude standing here with all of us today. At Rape Crisis, we see a lot of guys who are supporting survivors, their friends or family or loved ones. Our agency manager, Eleanor, told me she almost gets more calls from men than women asking how they can help a woman in their family, their partner or their daughter or their sister. That is a huge practical thing guys can do to help stop sexual violence and the impacts of sexual violence in our community. I know a lot of us are angry, and it is really reasonable to be angry at these kind of attitudes, but sometimes violence isn't the answer to other violence. And treatment can be far more important and effective than punishment, because most sexual abuse is committed by someone close to the victim, and that means they have to deal with the person who harmed them being in their lives for the rest of their lives, a member of their family, a member of their community. Many survivors who come to Rape Crisis for help don't want to see their abuser punished. They want him to acknowledge that what he did was harmful and make sure it never happens again. And just this week, we've seen the diplomat who assaulted Tanya Billingsley right here in Wellington sentenced to home detention, which is pretty rubbish. Her support person, the legendary Louise Nicholas, who wasn't able to be here tonight. Love you, Louise. She talked about how home detention, or even a prison sentence, doesn't fix anything unless this guy is going to rehabilitation, unless we are doing something to address his attitudes to women and sex and entitlement to those things. And speaking of men with terrible beliefs about women and sex, I don't want to forget the guy who's brought us all together tonight.
Thank you.
We are here, thank you Roosh, we're here because of a guy called Roosh who writes books and blog posts about how to coerce and assault women. His theories sound like a joke, and a lot of people said that, come on, it's clearly a joke. It's ridiculous that he says rape should be legalized on private property, or you can tell if a woman's promiscuous because she'll have slut face. But this is serious. These attitudes he promotes are a very dark but very common part of our mainstream culture. The men who visit his websites and other sites like it are believers. They are going out in public, they are putting these lessons into practice, and inevitably this leads to abuse against women, against queer people, against trans people, against Muslims, against Jews, against anyone else who he is preaching hate against. So this isn't about one guy who has one messed up idea about rape. This is an ideology, and a lot of guys fall in with this ideology, and they were going to meet here in our city and in Auckland and in Dunedin and in cities across the world, and we said no to them. And we said it loudly, and we have said it together as men and women and activists and allies, everyone who is affected by this, because we are all affected by this. Thank you for being here and for being a part of saying no to those douchebags. But this is still just a first step, because it's actually pretty easy to say rape is bad. We all know that rape is bad. But changing our society and making real progress to stop sexual violence starts with the little things. It starts with joking about rape. It starts with sexual harassment at work. It starts with the dehumanizing way we talk about trans people or sex workers, two groups of people at massively increased risk of sexual assault. It's making excuses for your mates when they call women bitches, but only when they're angry. It's talking about date rape or grey rape as though those are different things to rape. And they're not. And every little bit builds a culture which excuses and even encourages sexual violence. But together we can tear that down, and we can make our society safer for everyone, and that's starting right here with all of us tonight. We're going to have a few speakers and then have some good music until about 9 p.m. We'll first hear from Robert from the White Ribbon Campaign, who are looking to get more proactive on these issues, then Fiona McNamara from the Sexual Abuse Prevention Network, then Hadassah, wherever she's got to. There you are. Yeah, you arrived. And then Dan is going to wrap everything up. So thank you all again for being here.
I come from the White Ribbon Campaign, And our campaign is specifically educating men across this country about how to respect women and respect gender equality. These types of events are important because it brings people together, and it actually forces the issue. It forces those in power who can do something about it, who can change gender equality for the better. When I heard about this particular individual, it really concerned me, apart from the fact that he's a bit of a nutcase. And there was no way that he was going to even be able to enter in this country. What concerns me is the people that, the men who were, the invisible men who were willing to come out into our cities and meet with him. It also concerns me in recent times with our elected officials who fail to see or fail to appreciate the seriousness of this issue. Our country gave women the right to vote. Our country was the first country to give women the right to vote, but we still have a long way to go to recognise gender equality in this country. I want to thank every man here especially for turning up with their partners, with their friends, with their colleagues, or even if they just came as an individual, because it's you that need to educate other men to change the pattern of behaviour in this country. So please do support organisations like the White Ribbon. We need your support. We are having to now rely on everyone else. We can't rely on the government to help us. We're realising that now. So we need every one of you to support us, to support the Wellington Rape Crisis, White Ribbon, Wellington Help, the Sexual Network, the Sexual Prevention Network, and other organisations like that. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's really, really important, and for me personally, I feel quite touched about how many people are here. I now have had 4 friends who have either been bashed up by their partners or have been sexually abused by their partners, and I've had to live through the experience of trying to help them while I see their lives break down. I don't want that to happen to anyone else. I really don't want to have that happen to anyone else in this country. And it will, progress will only happen if all of us come together and put pressure on other men in this country, and especially our elected officials, right from the top, the Prime Minister, down to the bottom. Thank you very much for coming along. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Fiona McNamara and I'm the General Manager of the Sexual Abuse Prevention Network, which is an organisation governed by Wellington Rape Crisis, the Wellington Sexual Abuse Help Foundation and WellStop. And we work in the community with adults and young people, teaching positive messages around healthy relationships and consent, and working to teach skills to identify sexual violence and step in and prevent it before it happens. This week I've spent a lot of time wondering whether we should be giving any airtime to this group that we're all here to fight against today. Wondering whether talking about their harmful views on national television and blogs and on social media is just giving them a platform to spread those views around. And would they otherwise just be ignored, or is this encouraging kind of copycat behaviour or spreading them further? I think it would be easy to dismiss this kind of behaviour because it just seems so absurd, it's so extreme. But unfortunately what these people are saying, it's not just them, and these views are really widespread in our society and they're not new ideas. We're up against these ideas every single day. What we're here fighting today is not just about one man writing for his own website from his basement. It's about an issue that affects all parts of our society, an issue that is so widespread that it will touch each one of us individually at some point in our lives. Sexual violence is at epidemic proportions in New Zealand and around the world. In New Zealand, 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6 men, and 1 in 2 trans people will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. And 100% of these situations is preventable. They are all preventable. What's especially scary to me about this group is that this group decided that at this time in our society, in 44 different countries, they could actually get away with openly expressing these extreme views of hatred towards women, towards trans people, towards queer people, with extreme racism, and that they could do this with no consequences at all. They thought they could get away with this because they're not the only ones in our society who hold these views, and they're not the only ones who are expressing them. There's been huge outcry about what this particular group has been saying, and we can't ignore what they're saying because it is so extreme. But what's scarier to me than the small number of people on the internet is that these same ideas are everywhere, but because they're usually expressed more subtly, they often go unchecked. The harmful messages that this group is putting out there are the same messages that we're seeing every day in music videos, in song lyrics, on TV shows, stand-up comedy, casual comments thrown at women on the street or in the staff room. This week, while much of our attention was focused on this particular group, a female news reporter in New Zealand was assaulted on national television. The men who assaulted her said they were just playing a friendly joke and that next time the news should send a male reporter to laneways. And it wasn't just them who were brushing off their own behaviour. They were celebrated online, and people on social media called them legends. So this kind of behaviour in our society is not just going unnoticed, it's also openly being celebrated. I applaud each and every individual who's spoken up in some way against sexual violence this week. Our collective voices around the world have been louder than this hate group has, and as a result, they have realised that this is something that society as a whole will not stand for, and all their events have been called off. The next step is to identify and call out these same ideas and behaviours when they happen in our communities in a more subtle way. The solution to this problem lies with all of us. The specialist sexual violence sector is very, very small, and we need the whole community to be consistently speaking out against these harmful messages and harmful behaviour, and to be promoting positive messages. We need to keep up the momentum of this week and keep the pressure on. Sexual violence is not inevitable, and those of you here are the people who can lead this change. We can all do something to end sexual violence. Things you can do include calling people up on their bad behaviour when you see it. If your mate is out pursuing someone who's clearly too intoxicated to consent, then pull them aside and let them know that this is not okay. If they're really into that person, they can wait until they're sober. If you think that someone you know is in an unsafe relationship, then be their friend and make it clear that you will be there if they need your support. If you hear someone joke about rape or sexual abuse, tell them that this trivialises and normalises unacceptable behaviour. It can also isolate survivors and make it harder for them ever to disclose their abuse. If you hear comments that stereotype women as passive and indicate that men should be persistent to get what they want, then tell those people that these attitudes undermine women's sexuality and ignore consent, and they encourage men to pressure women into doing things that they don't want to do. Call up transphobic and queerphobic comments and behaviours, because discrimination against diverse genders and sexualities is dehumanising, and it contributes to sexual violence. Don't stand for marginalising anyone in our community. Say something about racism, ableism, ageism, and anything that you hear. Bring an analysis of gender and sexuality stereotypes into conversations with the people you talk to who don't think about these topics every day. We're really lucky, a lot of us here are in communities where people are doing these analytical discussions and understand these ideas, but there are plenty of people we interact with who don't think about this, and it's really important that we talk to them too. Encourage people to be critical of all the messages that are reinforced by TV shows or music videos or all sorts of different kinds of media and conversations they're hearing. Sexual abuse and sexual violence exist on a continuum, and in a culture in which some individuals, and in a culture where some individuals are valued above others, is a breeding ground for serious abuse. We all need to be calling up these harmful behaviours. And as we've seen this week, if we do take a stand, we can drown out these harmful messages and shift the conversation to positive, healthy messages. By coming here today, you have taken the first step and made the call that you're going to be someone who won't stand for abuse and violence in your community. It's important that we all keep this conversation going and support your friends when they need it, and speak out whenever you get the opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hadassah Grace. I'm a writer and a sex worker and a survivor of sexual assault. I want to acknowledge that today is Waitangi Day, and now more than ever, with the signing of the TPPA and with our Prime Minister's refusal to go to Waitangi, there is a real threat to Māori sovereignty. If you care about the women's rights, you need to care about the rights of Into the mic? Is that better? Okay. If you care about women's rights, you need to care about the rights of all marginalised people, especially the original owners of the land we are standing on. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that women aren't the only ones who are targeted by Return of Kings. His message of hatred and violence extends to gay, lesbian and bisexual people, transgender and intersex people, and Muslims and even Jewish people, apparently. To everyone in those communities, we are here for you and we support you. I want to acknowledge the privilege I hold in taking time and space to talk about my own issues, which are no more important than the issues in these communities. I appreciate you giving me space and attention, and I hope I can represent you as well. Give me a clap if you don't live in your mother's basement and write a blog that spreads hatred and violence towards people who aren't like you. Give me a clap if you're not so terrified of women and rejection that you'd rather pretend we're not as smart as men than risk having a conversation with them. Give me a clap if your nickname doesn't rhyme with douche. We're already winning! It's easy to make fun of Return of Kings, and maybe we should because it takes away power from them, but it also makes it easier to ignore the culture that created people like him and the very real problem with sexual assault and gender-based violence in New Zealand. I was looking at statistics for New Zealand while I was writing this, and it's even worse than I thought, which is bad because I already knew that it was terrible. According to Rape Prevention Education New Zealand, 1 in 3 girls will experience an unwanted sexual encounter by the age of 16. 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault as an adult. Māori women are twice as likely to experience sexual assault. Unfortunately, there aren't many statistics for New Zealand, but we do know that trans people are more than twice as likely to experience sexual assault. And in fact, according to the Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network, if a trans woman decides to express her true gender identity, she is more than 20 times more likely to experience sexual assault than if she had continued living with the gender she was assigned at birth. I'm going to let that sink in because it's more than 20 times more likely. In 2011, the UN rated New Zealand the worst of all OECD countries for sexual assault. That's worse than 34 countries. It's not just a few sad men hiding behind their keyboards, it is all of us. Culture isn't just created by media. It's created by each one of us in the way we treat the people around us. Every one of us makes a conscious choice to create culture every time we tell a joke in a crowded bar, or share something on Facebook or Twitter, or attend an event like this one. That's why it's been so incredible in the past week to see hundreds of people getting involved in organizing this event. Thank you so much. As a survivor, I know how lonely and isolated it can feel. I was sexually abused between the ages of 12 and 14 and violently raped at 14. I've had police, parents, teachers, doctors, friends, and complete strangers tell me what happened was my fault. I can't tell you how amazing it is to see so many people standing up for survivors saying, "We believe you, we support you, and we are here for you." If the story that Return of Kings tells were true, that people are raped because they dress provocatively, or because they get too drunk, or because they flirt, or dance, or walk, or talk in a way that invites attack, we would see less sexual violence in countries where people dress conservatively, where alcohol is banned, or where women's movements are restricted. The fact is, we often see more. Violence against women is a direct result of a culture that shows less respect to women. Violence against Indigenous people, against people of color, against LGBTQ are all direct results of a culture which says these people are less deserving of respect. But that's good news, because it means we can change it. By changing the culture we live in, by showing respect and compassion to everyone, by making choices which promote equality. Roosh wants men to think they're animals who can't control themselves. Return of Kings says all men are rapists and that women should live in fear. I choose to trust men, to hold everyone to a higher standard than dogs that hump anything in sight. I believe everyone is capable of changing the culture we live in, because Roosh's ideas hurt everyone, including men. I know it feels hopeless, but we can all make a difference. If each one of us takes responsibility for the world we create just by living in it, we can change things. Stand up to your friends and co-workers when they say things that harm people. Say something when someone makes a rape joke or shames someone for dressing or behaving in a way they consider slutty. Don't let friends say racist, homophobic, transphobic, or sexist slurs, and continue showing support for survivors of sexual assault. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Dan. Like a lot of men here tonight, I'm here because I got really fucking mad. And, like, I knew something had to be done, and all the guys here feel the same way, right? So I came into this campaign wanting to get more guys involved, and it's good to see the guys here, because this is all about talking to you and only to you. I've got nothing really to say to women apart from sorry, and that it's embarrassing you even have to be here. Like many guys, I've read stats about how 1 in 4 New Zealand women will experience sexual assault. What I haven't read is how many men commit sexual assault in their lifetimes. How many of our brothers and fathers? How many of our male friends and work colleagues? How many of us who are here tonight, guys, have committed sexual assault? Why aren't we talking about that? Despite all the information to the contrary, a lot of us still like to think of rapists as balaclava-wearing monsters hiding in bushes, or anonymous strangers on the internet, being prompted by a beardy weirdo in America who lives in his mother's basements and wears sweat-stained clothing. But they're not. And that's a hard thing to acknowledge, that it's us men. It's a hard thing to acknowledge that it's us doing this to women when we've been raised into protecting and looking after women even as we hurt and we degrade them. It might not be you here in the audience, but it is us. Every time we awkwardly laugh at a rape joke at work, we're signaling to a rapist in the room or a supporter of women haters like Roosh that they're okay, that we're on the same side, that we get it. Every time we say nothing when a woman is blamed for that short skirt or for walking home alone at night. Every time we treat women like objects and not like people. It's a nasty truth, eh? But I think we have to own it. We have to take hold of it and carry it around and use it as a lens on how we see the world and our interactions in it. Men, this is on us. And I think there's mana to be had in owning that and doing your best to fight against it. Guys, I believe in us and our ability to make this better. I wouldn't be talking here right now. I'd be hiding under my bed in embarrassment. We can do better. We can be better. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Pinky. I'm actually not talking. Like I've left that to them and they've done an incredible job of it. I couldn't be happier. Yeah, I'm one of the organisers of the event, but I'm not that great at talking, so I'm just gonna dedicate a song to Return of Kings. All sing along if you want and just enjoy yourselves. And I'm gonna make this as unawkward as possible.